She puts her phone down, the lights go off, and that's when her mind finally starts to wander. Most men think a goodnight text is just politeness, something you send to be nice, something safe, and that's exactly why it fails. Because the moment she closes her eyes, the men who played it safe disappear. Here's the cold truth. If your message blends in, you vanish. But if your message hits the right psychological nerve, you don't just get remembered, you slip into her subconscious. Nighttime is when logic shuts down and imagination takes over. And the man who understands that doesn't chase attention. He plants himself where it matters most. There are 6 specific good night messages that aren't designed to be liked. They're designed to be felt, remembered, and quietly replayed while she's alone in the dark. This isn't about texting better. It's about understanding how women think when no one is watching, when they're alone with their thoughts. If that kind of insight matters to you, hit like and subscribe now. Not for entertainment, but as a commitment to upgrading how you move. Because once you understand what happens in her mind at night, you'll never send another careless message again. Number 1. Good night. I'll try not to show up in your dreams, but no promises. Most men don't realize what actually happens when a woman goes to bed. The lights go off, the noise fades, and the logical part of her mind finally loosens its grip. This is not the moment of reason. This is the moment of imagery, memory, and emotion. Nighttime is when her inner world takes over. And that's exactly why careless messages die there. When a man sends something predictable like sleep well or sweet dreams, it doesn't offend her. It simply evaporates. It has no weight, no texture, no emotional residue. It gives her nothing to carry into the dark. And if there's nothing to carry, there's nothing to remember. This message works because it doesn't explain itself. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't check for comfort. It introduces an idea and then steps back. And psychologically, that matters more than most men will ever understand. At night, imagination is stronger than logic. What you imply lands deeper than what you say directly. By mentioning dreams without insisting on them, you place yourself in a space her mind is already drifting toward. You're not forcing an image, you're allowing one. And that distinction is critical. Notice what this line does not do. It doesn't ask, "Will you dream about me?" That would be insecure. It doesn't say, "I hope you think about me." That would be needy. Instead, it assumes presence without demanding proof. That's confidence in its cleanest form. And here's the part most men miss. You're not trying to control her response. You're not waiting for validation. You're not even trying to keep the conversation going. You're planting a thought and letting silence do the rest of the work. Silence at night is powerful. It amplifies whatever was said last. This is why men who overtext lose ground. They flood the moment with noise and give her no space to feel. This line does the opposite. It creates space and then gently occupies it. For a woman, the phrase "no promises" carries a subtle edge. It suggests unpredictability without chaos, confidence without pressure. It signals that you're comfortable with ambiguity, which is far more attractive than certainty wrapped in desperation. And whether she smiles, laughs, or quietly rereads it once before putting her phone down doesn't actually matter. Because either way, you've already done what most men fail to do. You've entered her internal world without knocking. That's the difference between a man who hopes to be remembered and a man who understands how memory is formed. The man who enters her dreams didn't ask for permission, he implied himself. Number 2, rest well. But don't smile too much tomorrow thinking about me. This line separates men who hope from men who assume. And that difference is everything. Most men communicate from a place of uncertainty. They wonder how they're coming across. They worry about being too much. They carefully soften their words so they won't risk being seen as confident, because confidence to the insecure man feels dangerous. He mistakes it for arrogance, and in doing so, he permanently places himself beneath the woman he's trying to attract. This message does the opposite. It assumes presence. It assumes impact. It assumes that you already occupy space in her mind and you don't ask her to confirm it. That's why it works. Confidence isn't loud. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't wait to be approved. Confidence simply states reality as if it's already been decided. And psychologically, women are far more responsive to a man who operates from that frame than one who waits to be chosen. Notice the direction of time here. You're not talking about tonight anymore. You're projecting yourself into tomorrow. You're quietly telling her that this connection doesn't end when the lights go out. It carries forward. And the female mind is highly responsive to continuity. She doesn't just feel something, she anticipates it. This is where most men break down. They're afraid of being perceived as cocky, so they shrink their language. They add disclaimers. They soften statements into questions. And every time they do that, they signal uncertainty, not humility, uncertainty. This line contains none of that. Don't smile too much isn't a request. It's playful control. It frames her reaction before it happens. And once her reaction has been framed, the mind unconsciously checks in with it. Tomorrow morning, when she does smile, even briefly, you're the association her mind returns to. That's emotional programming without force. And here's the deeper layer. You're not chasing a response. You're not asking her to reply. You're not waiting by your phone to see if she validates you. You've already moved on mentally. That emotional independence is what gives this message its pull. Men who fear being seen as confident stay stuck in neutral. They text carefully, they hope politely, and they wonder why attraction never fully forms. But attraction doesn't grow in safety, it grows in polarity. This message creates polarity because it assumes value instead of requesting it. You're not saying, I hope you think about me. You're saying, I know I crossed your mind. And that certainty, calm, unforced, unapologetic, is what quietly shifts the power dynamic in your favor. Number 3. Good night. I hope your pillow isn't jealous that I'm not there. This is where most men either get it completely wrong or don't dare to go at all. Men are taught that attraction comes from saying more, explaining more, escalating faster. And that's why they either jump straight into clumsy sexual hints or retreat into harmless friendliness. Both fail for the same reason. They leave no room for imagination. This message works because it doesn't describe intimacy. It suggests it. The female mind responds more powerfully to images than to statements. When you give her a picture instead of a proposition, her imagination does the work for you. And imagination always feels safer, deeper, and more personal than anything handed to her directly. Mentioning a pillow is disarming. It's everyday, innocent, non-threatening, but it's also intimate in context. A pillow is what she rests her face on, what she hugs without thinking, what absorbs warmth and closeness when no one else is there. By referencing it casually, you step into an intimate mental space without invading it. That's the difference between implied intimacy and forced intimacy. A direct sexual hint triggers resistance. It puts her on guard. It makes her assess intent. But an implied image slips past her defenses because it doesn't demand a response. It doesn't ask her to do anything. It simply lets her notice something she hadn't consciously framed before. And here's the critical part. She completes the story herself. Women don't want everything spelled out. When a man over-explains, He kills mystery. He removes participation. But when you give her just enough, her mind fills in the rest. And whatever she creates internally feels more real than anything you could say out loud. This is why men who try too hard always lose momentum. They crowd the moment, they rush the feeling, they mistake boldness for pressure. This line is bold precisely because it doesn't push. It also subtly reinforces masculinity. There's no apology in it, no checking if it's okay, no emotional hedging. You're comfortable enough to acknowledge closeness without needing to secure it. That comfort communicates strength. And strength to a woman isn't about dominance, it's about ease. About a man who isn't afraid of silence, isn't afraid of implication, isn't afraid of letting her mind wander where it wants to go. When she reads this, she may smile, she may roll her eyes, she may shake her head and put the phone down. But the image has already been planted, and images don't disappear on command. Never say what her imagination can say better, because the moment she fills in the blanks herself, the connection stops being yours alone. It becomes something she participated in creating, and that's when it lingers. Number 4. Good night. Let me know if I make a guest appearance in your dreams. This line works because it does something most men never dare to do. It leads without asking. Pay attention to the phrasing. Let me know is not a question. It's not seeking permission. It doesn't ask how she feels about it. It assumes a position of calm authority and then leaves the decision entirely in her hands. That combination is rare. Most men communicate in one of two broken modes. They either ask too much, constantly checking for reassurance, or they push too hard, trying to force momentum. Both reveal the same problem: insecurity about their position. This message avoids both traps. By suggesting a guest appearance, you frame yourself as someone who already belongs in her internal world. Guests aren't strangers, they're familiar presences, but you're not demanding entry, you're allowing the possibility. And that's where intrigue is born. Women are deeply responsive to men who can lead emotionally without controlling outcomes. Leadership in this context isn't about dominance, it's about direction. You're setting a frame and letting her choose whether to step into it. That's what makes it attractive. Notice how this line creates curiosity without explanation. It doesn't clarify what kind of dream. It doesn't define the tone. It leaves the image open-ended. And when the mind encounters something open-ended, it naturally tries to complete it. That's where her imagination takes over. Most men would ruin this moment by adding extra words. They'd explain what they mean. They'd soften it with humor. They'd rush to make it safe. And in doing so, they'd drain the power from it. This line stands firm because it doesn't negotiate its presence. There's also a subtle power shift happening here. You're not texting to be chosen. You're texting from the assumption that you're already relevant. That doesn't guarantee attraction, but it creates the conditions for it. Because attraction grows in spaces where a man doesn't chase reactions, and if she never responds, nothing breaks. You didn't ask her to. The message wasn't a bid for validation. It was a seed. Seeds don't demand attention. They wait. This is why men who understand framing always have an edge. They don't flood conversations. They don't panic in silence. They trust the impact of what they place and when they place it. The contrast is sharp. One man texts hoping she'll pick him. Another texts knowing he's already entered her thoughts. Women feel that difference immediately, even if they can't articulate it. This line leaves her with a quiet question she didn't have before. And questions that form in silence tend to echo the longest. Number 5. If you wake up with a smile, you'll know who caused it. This message isn't about the night, it's about what happens after. Most men focus all their effort on the moment they send a text. They want an immediate reaction, a reply, a signal that they matter. And in doing so, they miss the deeper game entirely. What actually builds attachment isn't the response, it's the association. Women don't remember exact words. They remember how something made them feel. And more importantly, they remember when that feeling shows up again later, seemingly out of nowhere. That's what this message is designed to do. Mourning is a psychological reset. It's when emotions reassemble themselves before logic fully comes online. The first moments after waking are soft, unguarded, and emotionally open. Whoever is linked to that state holds a quiet advantage. This line creates that link. You're not promising anything. You're not demanding gratitude. You're simply stating a calm certainty that you have an effect. And that kind of certainty lands differently than praise or reassurance ever could. Notice how restrained it is. There's no "I hope," no "maybe," no emotional reach. You're not trying to convince her you matter. You're letting her discover it through her own experience. That's far more powerful. Most men sabotage attraction by doing too much. They over-message. They explain their feelings. They try to stay constantly present. Thinking availability equals value. It doesn't. It dilutes it. Emotion needs space to echo. One well-placed line at the right psychological moment creates more imprint than 10 texts sent out of anxiety. This message also subtly positions you as a positive emotional influence without making you responsible for her happiness. You're not claiming ownership of her mood. You're acknowledging impact. And there's a critical difference between the two. Impact is attractive. Responsibility is heavy. By framing it this way, you allow her to notice the smile herself. And once she notices it, her mind naturally asks why. That question leads back to you, but it feels like her conclusion, not your attempt. That's how emotional anchoring works. You don't tell her how to feel. You let her feel, then recognize the source. Men who chase attention never create anchors. They create noise. Men who understand timing create moments that linger long after the conversation ends. This line isn't meant to be followed up. It's meant to be left alone. Because the real work happens when you're not there. When she wakes up, feels something light, and connects it to you without being prompted. That's when you stop being another name in her phone and start being a presence she carries. Number 6, good night. If you can't sleep, you know where to find me. This is the closer, and it only works if everything before it has been done right. On the surface, this message sounds simple, calm, almost casual. But psychologically, it hits a place most men never know how to occupy. Being available without being attached. Women are drawn to men who feel safe, but not static, present, but not dependent. This line sits precisely in that space. You're not pulling her closer. You're not disappearing either. You're standing still and letting her decide. That balance is rare. Most men fall into extremes. They either overstay, dragging conversations late into the night because they're afraid to lose momentum, or they pull away completely, thinking distance alone creates value. Both approaches miss the point. Attraction doesn't grow from absence or pressure. It grows from choice. This message gives her that choice. You're not saying, "Please text me." You're not saying, "I'll be waiting." You're not hinting at disappointment if she doesn't respond. You're simply stating availability without emotional cost. That signals confidence at a deeper level. It tells her you're grounded enough to be there and secure enough to be fine either way. And that emotional self-containment is what makes a man feel solid rather than needy. There's also a layer of mystery here that most men accidentally destroy. You don't explain what happens if she does reach out. You don't preview the conversation. You don't sell the moment. You let her curiosity do the work. What would happen if I texted him? What would we talk about? Why does this feel different from everyone else? Those questions only appear when a man doesn't over-define himself. Emotionally, this line positions you as a calm presence rather than a demand. You're not the man who needs to be chosen to feel validated. You're the man who's open but not reaching. And women instinctively respect that. This is where emotional safety enters. She knows she can reach out without pressure, without obligation, without being pulled into something she didn't choose. And paradoxically, that freedom makes reaching out more likely, not less. Availability without neediness is rare, and rarity creates value. Men who don't understand this try to manufacture closeness. They force connection. They stay talking long past the natural end, and in doing so, they drain attraction instead of building it. This message does the opposite. It ends the night cleanly, confidently. It leaves her with a sense of openness rather than expectation. And that feeling lingers far longer than any forced conversation ever could. You're not positioning yourself as an option she pies. You're positioning yourself as an option she wants. And that difference defines everything that comes next. These 6 messages were never about clever wording. They were about position. Men who lose in dating believe attraction comes from effort. More texts, more reassurance, more availability. And that's exactly why they stay anxious, reactive, and forgettable. Because the moment you need a response, you give away leverage. What you've learned here is different. When a woman thinks about you in silence, when there's no notification, no prompt, no pressure, that's when you've already won. Not because you chased her attention, but because you knew how to leave an imprint. You understood timing. You understood space. You understood how her mind works when the world goes quiet. You don't need instant replies. You don't need confirmation. You don't need to be chosen in real time. Men who text to be loved stay restless. Men who text to create impact stay in control. That's the shift. These messages don't ask for anything. They don't negotiate attraction. They don't plead for connection. They place you calmly in her internal world. And then they step back, and what remains is curiosity, association, and emotional memory. If this way of thinking feels unfamiliar, that's a good sign. It means you're moving away from reactive behavior and toward intentional communication. And that's where real power begins. If you want to understand women from the inside out, not guess, not hope, not overcorrect, subscribe now. This channel isn't about tricks, it's about clarity. Leave a comment if you've ever said the right thing at the right moment and felt the shift immediately. And share this with the man who still thinks texting is just texting. Because once you see what actually drives emotional connection, you don't go back.